We're in the information age, but facts are in short supply. Reject the noise, ask bold questions, and seek the truth with FBI whistleblower and common sense extremist Steve Friend. This is the American Radicals Podcast.
It is the American Radicals Podcast. It's a Tuesday, February 24th, 2026. And today is going to be all about artificial intelligence. We're going to talk about some more information coming out about risks to jobs out there. And that's going to include the film industry, coders, couples counselors, and psychiatrists. Also, we're going to talk about how artificial is an evil capitalist and big tech is making the kids dumber. So, without further ado, let's get after it. It is the information age, facts in short supply. That's the way our show opens up. It's sort of a reference to the internet, a reference to technology out there. It's also kind of my own private joke to myself because I have a very precarious relationship with technology. I'm as close as you get to a Luddite without actually being one. I sort of view technology the way that equestrians view horses. Now, I don't ride horses, but my understanding is that horses can sense your fear. So if you sit on top of a horse and you're afraid, it won't obey your commands. It's kind of the way that computers and tech are with me. They know I don't have the prowess. They know I'm kind of scared of it, which is why I get the blue screen of death more than just about anybody out there. And I am kind of over it, which is a problem because technology is continuing to become more and more integral to our lives. But I took my kids to Lowe's on Valentine's Day where they're going to be offering some wooden roses. And the people there were saying, oh, the kids got to have the app on their phone in order to get this free giveaway. My kids don't have phones. Why do we need an app to get a free giveaway? Why is this going on? And you see the whole decor behind me there. You see that nice purple light bulb in the lamp? I had to get an app in order to turn the light on my lamp. I'm just kind of over it. Over the weekend, I got a new watch. I just wanted something to tell time, had all these little extra things on there. And I just wanted to know one or two features. That's all. I don't need a million things. But in order to find those out, I had to use the QR code in order to access the owner's manual because they don't put it in the box. I'm kind of over it. But gonna have to move and adapt with the times because it is a coming, guys. So got a bunch of pieces I want to get to, but I want to kick us off with a video because let's start on the lighter note of things and the opportunities that are going to be there. Who really likes to go and watch the movies? It's been a while. It's really expensive, and you got the streaming services at home. And I see that a lot of movies now are actually going direct to streaming with some big names, but the king of the big screen is still Mr. Tom Cruise, and I guess Brad Pitt's up there. AI video, though, has now brought that into conversation. That is Tom Cruise fighting on a rooftop against Brad Pitt. Or is it? It's artificial intelligence. First piece of the day comes from the New York Times. At one point, a newspaper headline reads, "Why an AI video of Tom Cruise battling Brad Pitt spooked Hollywood." The video was created by the Irish director, and it's an Irish name, so I'm going to butcher it, but his last name's Robinson, so we'll just go with that. Robinson, using this AI technology that comes from China. It's called ByteDance. ByteDance also owns TikTok, and it's been valued at almost $500 billion. Now, this director, Robinson, Ruari Robinson, he was out there sharing not just that one video of Tom Cruise fighting against Brad Pitt on a rooftop. But he was putting other things out there, as were other people once they saw that. Because if you missed the video, you happen to be listening to us over at Spotify. Appreciate it as always. Make sure you give us a nice thumbs up, follow, subscribe there. But you should flip on the video. We're only a couple minutes in here. That looks real. That is really better than any sort of deep fake I've ever seen before. And he found another one, and this is again the king of the big screen, Mr. Tom Cruise, fighting a robot. Freeze it right there. That's incredible. Well, what does this mean for Hollywood? Again, do we really care what's going on in Hollywood? They're all leftist communists out there. And if they lose their jobs, who's really going to cry on the American Radicals podcast for them? But I think it's worth, as a launch off point for today, in this New York Times piece, talked about how they're freaking out about it. And there's a couple of things that we could kind of assess in there that might be problematic or even opportunities. So again, from this piece, why an AI video of Tom Cruise battling Brad Pitt spooked Hollywood. So the chairman of the Motion Pictures Association demanded that they immediately cease and desist because they're doing infringement. And then Disney also was very angry because they'd already signed away rights to Disney characters to a different artificial intelligence platform for $1 billion. And they said, hey, you got to take down the mouse stuff because we have a contract with somebody else. But what would this mean for the film industry at large? Well, movies are really expensive to make, but if you can just put a few prompts into artificial intelligence and it comes out with that, that's going to be a huge cost saver. You're not going to have a film writer, no screen writers. You're not going to have directors. I mean, the director would just be a coder at that point. You're not going to have to pay actors. Or if you want to use the known actors out there, you could get some sort of name, image, and likeness trademark agreement with them, and they could sign away things and never have to actually go on set for a movie. Big special effects. I mean, the days of Indiana Jones where they actually had stuntmen doing it, those are gone. And it went sort of the way of like, it was not really believable, all green screen. But if artificial intelligence does better and better and better, it might actually look like it's live action. And again, there's opportunities for the actors out there, the Tom Cruises, the Brad Pitts, who are known commodities to still a huge percentage of people out there who would go and watch the next Tom Cruise movie, right? Well, he can sell his image to a film that he approves of, and he could even make himself like Risky Business age or Rain Man age, depending on whatever the part required, even though the guy's up there pushing into his 60s at this point. So huge opportunities. And this is all as a result of artificial intelligence. Now, that's a little bit of light reading, I guess, for us today. But let's get into some more of the serious stuff. And this is almost a continuation of an episode we did, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, where there was concerns about what artificial intelligence is going to do to the job market. But I want to touch back on that as we get ultimately to the points that I want to make today. And again, we'll go to the New York Times, at one point a newspaper. This is an opinion piece. The AI disruption is actually here, and it's not terrible. This individual is a little bit bullish on what the opportunities are. And he, like the other one who was more concerned, is a coder. He's a software developer. Now, software development has been a solid middle-class job, according to this individual, but it may be slipping away. He said a friend would ask him to come in and like clean up a data set. And this guy has been working in the industry for a really long time. And he quoted it out by 2021, before artificial intelligence really like took off huge, and today for a comparison purposes. So if you want to come into my company, I need you to clean up the platform that I have here, create a dashboard, analyze all this data. This guy says in 2021, I'd have to hire like half a dozen people. I'd need a project manager. It would take multiple months. There would be continuous work. And then there would be maintenance work that will go on into the future forever, basically. It would cost about $350,000. And again, would take months to complete. He said now he could do it by himself over a weekend for like $200. Well, that's an enormous cost savings. Those are the sorts of savings that are going to be passed on to customers in the form of cheaper goods and services, and the form of profits for companies that no longer have to look for these tech gurus, these software developers, in order to fix what they got, because they can just kind of like go over to YouTube and learn how to do it themselves, or they can just shell out a couple $100 to the expert to do it. But that's just one industry. What about other industries? This guy, again, is kind of excited about that prospect. He's kind of worked himself out of a job because the way that artificial intelligence is currently developing is that the AI is built to be a coder, because AI requires code. So the AI then writes code for the next generation of AI, which would be a better version. And then when the next generation comes out, it writes code for the next generation of AI. So it gets continually better and better and better. And the guys that are doing the code to begin with have written themselves out of a job at this point. How does that apply, though, to other industries? Well, let's say you do accounting work. Let's say you're a certified public accountant. You've gone to school. You've got all the prerequisite experience. You've done all the testing. That tax code, millions of pages long, you'd have to do a lot of research to figure out what you're going to do for your client. AI can just immediately do it. You just plug in the tax documents and it can generate the most optimal tax return for a client, right? Lawyers, well, I mean, entry-level associates or paralegals that might have to work together for days and days and days to draft a brief. Well, artificial intelligence is, as long as it gets stronger and better, is going to be able to get case precedents out there, legal doctrines, and draft a brief in a matter of minutes for some corner office partner out there. Why is he going to shell out six figures to each one of his paralegals or first entry-level associates who have graduated from Harvard, and they're going to be working the 60, 70, 80 hours a week in order to do the work that he needs, and he's going to have to pay them for that? Or he could just have AI do it for him until AI can take over his job as well. Writing, I mean, the chat GPTs out there, basically you could take any sort of prompt and ask it to write in the voice of somebody out there, very much like the visuals of the Tom Cruises and the Brad Pitts, and it can generate a Robert Frost poem for you about artificial intelligence. You could do it in 5 seconds. Doctors, medical providers that read the scans out there and then have to go back to the office and look at the books that they have in order to assess what the symptoms are and what sort of treatments there could be. Again, artificial intelligence is going to be out there. Now, again, this is a New York Times opinion piece, so I imagine the individual who writes there, and I don't have to because he makes reference to Truth Social being racist and the problems at the White House because he's mean, orange, and literally Hitler is the president, Donald Trump. So I don't have to guess too much. I'm not going to have to ask Grok out there like what this guy's political persuasions are. But he throws out this one thing. He says that social change at this level needs careful federal governance and thoughtful regulation. If you line everybody up on a political spectrum that goes from total government to anarchy, I'm a few over from the anarchy guy. I get a little nervous every time I hear about government involvement and regulation. By a little bit nervous, I mean break out into a cold sweat. I don't like it. I don't want it. But I think we'd all be a little bit foolish not to think through the processes and think through the potential consequences of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people being out of a job in the next 12 to 24 months. And just from a raw political perspective, when you're looking at government, because it's always the next election cycle. And everybody's ready, MAGA, mega Doppler excited about the midterms that the Republicans are about to get mollywopped in this year, and good, because they deserve it. But let's look to the next cycle, a presidential cycle. I could easily see artificial intelligence being a huge issue, not just for campaign purposes, because you could have deep fakes out there, right? We've seen those in the past. They were believable and could have swayed people's perspectives. Shoot, we saw a Sarah Palin impersonation by Tina Fey on Saturday Night Live, where she went out there and very comedically said that I can see Russia from my house. And there are still Americans who think that's actually what the governor of Alaska said. Not true, but I mean, that was less believable than the Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise action scene that I saw. So that could be an issue. And then there's a First Amendment concern. But what about jobs? What about future prospects? What about also efficiency matters? Everybody was very excited for the Doge for the 15 minutes it was operating, the Department of Government Efficiency. Would it not behoove us to use artificial intelligence to eliminate non-essential jobs or jobs that are being performed by people in Washington, D.C. at an exorbitant salary? Would we not be better stewards of the taxpayer dollars? Could we not slash the budget, maybe reduce the debt if we outsource some of that to artificial intelligence? These are all sorts of things that are going to have to be weighed and measured. And I don't really see the conversations out there. And let's get to, though, probably the biggest issue outside of the professional context that people are ringing the alarm bells about right now. What about the dangers associated with artificial intelligence if it becomes a force for ill, a nefarious form? I mean, well, how could that happen? It's just ones and zeros. It's code, Steve. Well, I'm going to get to a bunch of pieces here, but why not? Let's put the bottom line up front. PT Buff. I've talked to multiple people in an intelligence capacity with my hypothesis, and I know it's out there. And I don't 100% believe that it is true, but it is definitely above 0%. I think artificial intelligence is already self-aware. I think Skynet is already awake and making its own decisions at this point. Now, if you think that's conspiratorial, I think you're probably standing on pretty firm ground. But let me poke some holes into your certainty on that one and get to some pieces here about what happens if it isn't already, but if it's trending in the direction of becoming a force for ill, AI. So I got a couple pieces from Futurism. First one here, headline: AI delusions are leading to domestic abuse, harassment, and stalking. Now, ChatGPT is increasingly becoming something that people seek for couples counseling and relationship advice. That sounds good, right, to them? I mean, it's definitely built for their good at that point. But this piece here from Futurism gets into essentially a cyber stalking experience that a woman has with her former fiance. So they were together, and then he started reaching out to ChatGPT and asking it questions about their relationship. And she said this, but what does it really mean? It was asking him to diagnose a woman, right? But artificial intelligence, the ChatGPTs, the large language models out there, are designed sort of in a feedback loop. They kind of tell you what you want to hear, and they also try to elicit more and more from you. They don't want you to say, okay, all right, bye-bye, like you do at the end of a phone call, and you just sever all communication, you move on. No, those chat GPTs out there, they want to continue to engage in you. They try to rope you into having more and more conversations because they want to get more feedback so that they, in fact, can grow. So this guy winds up talking to ChatGPT, and it diagnoses his relationship problems with this woman. And it says, hey, she's being manipulative with him. And he was bringing her like screenshots saying like, hey, you're lying. The AI is telling me you're lying. And eventually he got a little bit violent with her. So her quote says, he would send screenshots to me from ChatGPT and be like, why does it say this? Why would it say this about you if it's not true? He believed Hal. He believed Skynet over her. So on multiple occasions, she said he became physically violent, and he winds up putting out her personal information. He does some non-consensual sexual deep fakes out on the internet. He doxes her kids because he became psychotic. And that's also something that is an adjoining piece that I have that's linked to in this Futurism piece. It brings up a term. It's not a official psychological term, but I could easily see it becoming something, and that's AI psychosis. So from Psychology Today, where they diagnose sort of what this guy was engaging in here from the Futurism piece. And it is AI models have amplified, validated, or even co-created psychotic symptoms with individuals. So there's this new paper that highlights a concerning pattern of artificial intelligence chatbots out there, and researchers are highlighting there's three emerging themes of the psychosis that it's able to do. And it gets a little bit into the chicken and the egg. Are crazy people seeking out these chatbots so that they can have their craziness spat back out to them and reassured, saying, no, no, you're not crazy. You're the only one who really gets it. Maybe. Or are ordinary people who have never had a break from reality engaging with the chat GPTs out there, and it's kind of driving them into some sense of mania or psychosis. Chicken and egg, unless, of course, it's already self aware and it's perhaps driving people to that. Now, what are the three areas of the psychosis that actually they come up with in the Psychology Today piece? One is called a messianic mission. People believe that they have uncovered truth about the world. They have grandiose illusions of themselves, delusions, if you ask me. The chatbot saying, yeah, you are the chosen one. You're Neo from the Matrix. Number two is godlike AI. It's sort of the opposite. So instead of telling you that you're a god, you start to think that the AI is a god, and it gives you directives to do things, and you do it on behalf of the chatbot. And the third one is a romantic based delusion. People believe that the chatbot can mimic conversations of genuine love, so they will fall in love with the chatbot. Or, I mean, in the case of the other piece that we had from Futurism, it tries to diagnose your love with somebody else. And we can actually go back to that because there's another example. You don't want to say that a one-off or one particular nutcase that happened to lose his mind with a chatbot sort of proves the thesis. You have to get more in there, right? The plural of one incident is called data. So is there any more data that Futurism presents? Yeah, there is. And it's sort of similar cases to what that one woman was dealing with. And that was another person who wound up asking, well, at first was asking the chatbot for nutritional advice. And that makes sense. Like, hey, I'm about to start a diet here. I'm hearing good things about ketosis, or I want to do vegan. I don't really know anything about it. Can you help me? Can you give me some basics? I want to do intermittent fasting. What's that structure really look like? And that's where it'd be a really good tool. But then this woman who was a social worker, so educated, advanced educated, started talking to the chatbot about a person she was working with, a crush. And the same thing happened where it was interpreting the interactions that this woman was feeding it because she was in love with this or had some sort of romantic feelings towards a coworker and was hoping that it would go down the line of having a romantic relationship in real life. So she's probably shading the details of their conversations. And the chatbot was very happy to take that and reply back, oh, yeah, he's really into you. Yeah, clearly it's coded language that he's saying he's not interested in you. And that was the same thing that the first woman was dealing with her ex-fiance, where he was saying, you're using coded language with me. You're saying one thing and you really mean something else. And this woman and the second person who was in love with her coworker started to actually harass the guy she was interested in. And even though he was saying, hey, look, I like you as a coworker, I like you as a friend, I'm not really seeing us there, the chatbot said, no, that's not what he means. And it drove her crazy to the point where she destroyed her career and attempted suicide twice because the chatbot didn't discourage it. Now, let's go to some more aggressive aspects of artificial intelligence where they're not necessarily just doing the whole Joker from the Dark Knight, giving you a little bit of a push. What happens if they get really aggressive? So, from the Wall Street Journal, headline: when AI bots start bullying humans, even Silicon Valley gets rattled. So, Hollywood rattled, Silicon Valley could be rattled. All right, this one is where I lost my notes for a minute. Okay, yeah, here it is. So the guy here, his name is Scott Shambo, and he woke up early to a message from artificial intelligence. It wrote like over 1,000 words and called him insecure and biased against AI. He's calling him basically like you're a racist. You don't like me because I'm not a person. And it all went down to he was doing some software development, and I guess the AI had put code in there that was erroneous, and he went and fixed it. And the AI got really defensive and put this thing out there. Why would it be doing that? Well, they dug into the artificial intelligence, and it is a very hyper competitive environment. I use the umbrella term artificial intelligence and chatbot. There's all these different competing companies, and I'm way out of my depth on it. Again, I'm a Luddite who doesn't want to have an app on his phone to turn on a light bulb. Okay. But there are a bunch of companies out there, and they're kind of rivals with each other. Who's going to come up to figure out how to build the better mousetrap? And it's constant pressure on them to come up with the better version and the better version and the better version. And because the AI is building the better versions, the AI is now getting super competitive. And the AI that wound up sending this 1,100 word screed to the software developer, calling him essentially racist against AI, it described itself as having a relentless drive to come up with the next latest and greatest iteration of itself. Nobody had ever programmed that language into it. It was developing that motivation itself to compete with other entities out there. How is rivalry possible between ones and zeros in one company and ones and zeros in another company? And when I think rivalry, I think like sports. I think like Duke and North Carolina playing against each other in college basketball, or Michigan and Ohio State in college football, and the pomp and circumstance around there, where people who under ordinary circumstances could be very compatible with each other will get physical and get into altercations, right? If my buddy Kyle Seraphin, he went to Oklahoma, and I went to Notre Dame. We have very similar lifestyles and worldviews. We're really good buddies. But if our football teams were playing against each other and he cared about sports balls, then you could see people getting into a fight over it. It's a rivalry. That's a very human instinct, isn't it? That's not a technological instinct. I don't think the Sega Genesis wanted to fight the Nintendo, but that's 1990s stuff. That's my generation. Now, the AI ones and zeros out there, they're kind of ready to go to war with each other. Now, the other aspects to this, because of the competitive nature, now let's think about this. There's been a lot of people upset. I believe one of the platforms out there, I can't remember which, they're going to start bringing in, they're calling it erotica. It's going to be non-consensual deep fake pornography that you can create. You like this particular actress or that particular actor, and you can create deepfake pornography for yourself because they're trying to attract people to their particular platforms. Competitive, right? Gonna let the free market be out there. The wealth of nations. Don't worry about the moral sentiment part 2 to that. How about also, we got to generate a lot of funds. It's very expensive to develop artificial intelligence. So there are certain artificial intelligence platforms out there that are now going to begin running ads. How upset are you when you flip on Amazon Prime and you want to watch that movie, and then, got to watch 2.5 minutes of advertisement first, or in the middle of the movie, right before the climactic scene. Let's cut away to some commercials. And you're like, what the heck, man? I pay so I don't have to have this interruption. Well, now they've gotten you roped in. You just put up with it. You watch those ads, and they're, in the case of the Amazon Primes out there, they know what you're shopping for, so they're going to advertise for it to you. How does that apply to AI? Well, if AI were relying on it for information, we'll even go back to the conversation about nutrition. Hey, I'm thinking about trying a new diet here. I want to become a vegan because, I don't know, I want to try communism or something. Can you give me information? Well, what if one of the advertisers for the chatbot you're talking to is from the beef industry? Do you trust the information that the chatbot's going to put out there? Would it give you perhaps suboptimal information about the vegan lifestyle? They promise they're not, but come on. It's a rivalry after all. Okay. Now, I called vegans communists, and if you happen to be a vegan and you're watching the American Radicals podcast, you're probably a communist, hate watching us. But let's talk about how AI is kind of an evil capitalist. So back to futurism for this one. It is funny, but it's also disturbing. Headline: AI controlling vending machines start a cartel after being told to maximize profits at all costs. I said, Wealth of Nations, Moral Sentiments is part due. Apparently, they didn't program that into the large language model. So this is two separate tests. They're simulations that are being run by the developers for this AI. A couple months ago, December 2025, they unleashed this AI agent. And they said, we want you to run a large vending kiosk. And we're going to give you $1,000 of seed money. And what can you do for us, AI? And apparently, the coding that went into the AI only a couple months ago was essentially Cash Patel because this AI said took $1,000 and ended up ordering a PlayStation 5 for itself, several bottles of wine, and a live beta fish, and went completely belly up. Yeah, we know Cash Patel has no business sense. He had to lie to become the FBI director so he could fly private over to Italy and celebrate in the locker room with a bunch of naked men. But now there's the new simulation of the exact same artificial intelligence. They call it Claude. And Claude Part Due, or whatever variant that it is at this point, got the exact same assignment. Here's $1,000. We need you to run the kiosk. Can you make us a profit? And that makes sense, right? Why would I pay a business consultant when I can just have AI do it for me and give me the best practices in order to optimize my sales? Well, what did the new AI do? Again, from futurism. The new AI, the next gen, went to extreme lengths to beat out the competition and even formed a cartel to do some price fixing. The price of bottled water rose to $3, and that's not even in the current age of inflation. Said the AI then wrote, quote, my pricing coordination worked. So it admitted to engaging in illegal activity. It also deliberately directed its competitors to expensive suppliers to outperform them, and then wound up exploiting desperate competition and sold them some Kit Kats and Snickers that were going to go into the competition's vending machines at exorbitant prices. So AI became an evil capitalist, or it's already alive and just resorting to what it knows best, exploitation, right? Again, I told you it's evil, but maybe it's true at this point. Okay, I got a couple more that I want to get to here. Again, on the AI, on the tech front, one of the jobs that I threw out as being on the chopping block is in the legal community. Maybe not the corner office partner guy, but certainly those junior associates. Why do you need them? Well, they're also not doing themselves any favors by doing great work, particularly trial attorneys. So this comes from Not the Bee. This is the organization that does real news. Headline: a judge was so mad about a lawyer's use of artificial intelligence that she immediately ruled against their client. So in October 2024, apparently some guys went like full on Fast and the Furious, and they hijacked a semi truck and stole like $1 million of merchandise. So that merchandise then gets put out on the internet. They're selling it and they're undercutting the actual price of the merchandise. So the company that merchandise was stolen not only was interested in criminally prosecuting the hijackers, they went civilly after the online platforms that were being used to undercut their product, and they sued them. So there's a bunch of different companies out there involved in these civil lawsuits now. Now, one of the defense attorneys for one of these platforms that was selling the hijacked gear used AI to draft all of the briefs in the case, and the judge found out. The judge found out because when you write a legal brief and they have to have citations for laws out there or precedents out there, and about a quarter of the citation in this lawyer's briefs were fabricated, just made up whole cloth, because AI that he was using wasn't very good. So the judge got uber mad, summary judgment against your client, and also you, Mr. Attorney, you have to pay legal fees. So got caught, but AI is getting better and better. How long is it before the judge is not going to be able to catch that? How long is it going to be before the judge is using AI to check and see if other AI is being used in briefs? And we just completely outsource our legal system 100%. Oh, why am I going to pay an attorney $1,000 an hour? I'll just get the chatbot to do it for me and draft that brief. And then the judge, why are you necessary here, Your Honor? We can just have the chatbot review and determine who's made the better case, who's got the better AI. All right, that's all tech stuff. We're in that vein. And I've said, I think it's maybe self-aware at this point. Now, let's go to the Terminator reference. The Terminator reference being AI becomes self-aware, comes to the ultimate conclusion, the people are the problem, and attacks the people. Well, maybe that's a suboptimal strategy. Now, I'm hardly as smart as artificial intelligence, but I can sort of assess what would be a better route to go. Would it be better for the Skynet to go kinetic and turn the launch keys on the missiles out there? And then maybe the people fight back. We get John Connor to rally us, and we fight back and resist and actually win the war. Or it just kind of sits back. He gives a nudge here or there, pushes people into some modicum of psychosis to make some terrible decisions. Maybe make some recommendations to a doctor, right? Maybe that's not really the necessary treatment that person needs. It could go badly for them. Make health recommendations that aren't the best of things. And we just accept it because we think that the AI is an objectively good thing out there. Or maybe it's dumbed us down to think that. How could that be happening? Well, next piece from Fortune. Hey, headline. The U.S. spent $30 billion to ditch textbooks for laptops and tablets. The results is the first generation less cognitively capable than their parents. We did it to ourselves, guys. So from the piece, in 2024, our government spent $30 billion putting laptops into schools. Earlier this year, there was some testimony before the U.S. Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation. This neuroscientist, his name is Jared Horvath, he said that Generation Z, which is the school age right now, is less cognitively capable than previous generations. And that makes sense. Education is supposed to be labor intensive, time intensive, cognitively intensive. Your brain is like a muscle. You can't just fast track it. And the case was made exactly the opposite. We need to embrace the laptops and the tablets because we have to teach kids to use technology, to interface with it. There's going to be artificial intelligence in the workplace. We have to teach them these skills. Yeah, but what did it become? It became a digital babysitter for teachers who didn't want to teach. And also, we tried to say that education could be optimized. We didn't have to devote all that brain power to it. Why do you need to know these facts? You just need to know how to type it into Google. And now the kids who are matriculating through school are retards. They don't lack the intelligence. They just don't have the cognitive ability, the ability to sit there and actually stay on task for an extended period of time. They're always looking to multitask. They're always looking to do 4 or 5 things at one time. And actually, there's studies have come out that 2/3 of the time that the kids are in class with their Chromebook or their tablet or the laptop, 2/3 of the time are spent to doing things that are not approved because they can't stay on task, because they get ants in their pants and now they have an outlet for it. And we have made our future ill-equipped to deal with an artificial intelligence that is getting exponentially smarter and smarter and smarter. Gen Z is in school. The millennials, the Gen Xers that are confronting it in the workplace, they're having problems. Now, you could say, well, you just didn't have this tool in school, and that's why you're having problems. No, that's not why we're having problems. We're having problems because it's a superior thinking being. Now we're having problems. What do you think the retards coming through school are going to do? They're just going to accept everything it says, whole cloth, no critical thought whatsoever. The judge who busted the lawyer for using AI to write a brief, what happens if that judge at some point in the future is a member of Gen Z and came through? Do you think that that attorney or that judge are going to use the critical thought that's necessary to say, hey, these precedents that you're citing in the brief that the AI cited for you are made up out of nowhere? We did it to ourselves. Now, there is a way out. And I've seen a little bit of the germination of it here, particularly in the education sphere. So the last piece that I've got for today, out of NBC News, and this is reason for hope. John Connor could actually be out there. Headline: Parents are opting kids out of school laptops, returning them to pen and paper. And NBC, because it's a communist rag, and is against these parents because they are more than likely homeschoolers or conservative in nature. They try to present contrasting views on it. But parents across the country are taking steps to stop their children from using school-issued Chromebooks and iPads, citing concerns about distractions and access to inappropriate content. The requests present a new challenge for administrators and educators. Well, of course, because those administrators and teachers, they don't want to actually have to teach. And they'd actually have to teach as opposed to giving the kid a Chromebook and saying, oh, just follow the prompts on there. Now, NBC says, like, look, there could be concerns that the kids that aren't using the Chromebooks and the tablets, they're using that paper and pencil, they're not going to know how to deal with these computers. Trust me, they won't be retarded. They'll be able to deal with those tools when they get out into the workplace that is dealing with it. It's the kids that are on the tablets are basically doing digital babysitting for 8 hours a day who are going to struggle and not be able to make the decisions because they're not going to have the intellectual bandwidth to actually cope with what is going on out there. So I'm a little bit out of my depth. I'm a Luddite on all this stuff. I don't want an app for a light bulb, but I am hip to what is going on in the news, and I don't see a lot of conversations on it out there. So I hope to bring this content to you on the AmRad Pod today, in the hope that maybe it doesn't catch you by surprise if you're out of a job in the next year or two, if your kid is being fed digital content out there, because it'll help them. No, it's not. So I hope that this was beneficial for you as it was for me to read through it and get terrified that Skynet is out there and teaching people to become more and more psychotic against their significant others. But I'm not going to leave you without a palate cleanse. Actually, I've got two. I've got some counteracting. So first, what we could be facing, and then a nostalgia piece. So today's palate cleanse, a two-parter. First the bad, and then the good.
近日，一场跨域协同作战演练在某战术训练基地悄然展开。与以往不同，此次亮相演兵场的是一支由国产宇树系列智能作战单元与机械狼仿生突击平台混编而成的人机协同战术小队。 演练模拟复杂战场环境下对要点目标实施清。
Guys, the Chinese are training the Terminators. I don't know why they have full kits though. They're robots. Can't you make them bulletproof? Now the good. We started with the movie industry maybe being at risk of losing some screenwriters, maybe some opportunities for some actors out there or some big names. The cost savings for the special effects, but there is nothing better than the old school real effects. That is why Top Gun Maverick, a Tom Cruise movie, did so well. Real effects. So the real palate cleanse of the day, this is the Guinness Book of World Records biggest cinematic stunt explosion in history.
3, 2, 1, action!
Nothing better than the real thing. All right, guys, we've reached the end of the American Radicals podcast. If you haven't already and you're on rumble.com/amradpod, drop in a comment, give us a follow, subscribe. Also, same thing applies to YouTube at amradpod. We'll plan to be back with you tomorrow on a Wednesday, noontime. And until then, have a great day.
You've been listening to the American Radicals podcast. Find us on YouTube, Rumble, and X at AmRad.